how to provision Oracle integration OIC 3, and how to set up user access in your Oracle Cloud account with identity domains. Hi, and welcome to this video. My name is Valeria. Let's get started. To provision OIC from your Oracle Cloud console, navigation menu, go to Developer Services, Application Integration, Integration. Choose the compartment where you want to provision your instance. Keep in mind, it's best practice to provision inside a child compartment or a sub-compartment and not directly under your root compartment. Choose the region where you want to provision OIC, and then click on Create Instance. Choose a name for your instance. The default version is selected as Oracle Integration 3, which is the latest version. Choose the edition between Standard and Enterprise. We'll talk about the features included in each edition in a moment. And if you want to learn more, you can click on the Learn More link. Choose your shape between development and production. Development shapes receive the functional updates with new features 2 weeks before production shapes. Choose your license type between subscribe to new Oracle integration license. This is selected by default, or BYOL in case you own already licenses for Oracle Fusion middleware. Choose the number of message packs. This is the sizing of your OIC instance. You can choose between 1 and 12 message packs with subscribe to new Oracle integration license. You can add tags if needed. And click on Create. Let's have a look at the Oracle integration editions. OIC is available in 2 editions, Standard and Enterprise. In Standard Edition, you have access to the following capabilities: integration, Visual Builder, the standard adapters. These are more than 80 adapters, SaaS and technology, file server, and recipes and accelerators. With the Enterprise Edition, you have access to all the capabilities that are available with Standard. And additionally, you can use the Enterprise adapters. These are 4 adapters for on-premise applications: Oracle E-Business Suite, JD Edwards, Siebel, and SAP adapter. Also with Enterprise Edition, you can use process automation and the B2B capability. One note about Visual Builder and process automation. From a technical perspective, these capabilities are the same as the standalone products that you can find in Developer Services Visual Builder and Application Integration Process Automation. It takes a few minutes for your OIC instance to be ready, provisioned, up and running, and in active state. When you click on the instance name, you can see the integration instance information. When it was created, the version, the edition, the shape, the number of message packs. You can see here 3 capabilities: the file server, Visual Builder, and process automation. These need to be enabled post-provisioning if you want to use them. You can start, stop your instance, or delete it when no longer needed. You can move the instance from its current compartment to another compartment. And you can edit the instance to switch the edition between standard and enterprise, or to change the number of message packs for scaling your instance up or down. All the actions available here from the Oracle Cloud Console can also be accessed programmatically using REST APIs or CLI commands, and also Terraform for provisioning OIC. Now, to reach our OIC console, we can click on the Service Console button or go to the Service Console URL link. And this takes us to the OIC console. This is where developers and integration administrators will do their regular activities, creating and managing integrations. Let's discuss now about user access, how to enable users to create, manage, and access OIC instances. In Oracle Cloud, access is managed with policies. And in case of OIC, access is also controlled with application roles at domain level. Let's start with policies. Policies control access for users in a domain group to work with cloud resources within a specified compartment or tenant. For a user to be able to provision or manage integration instances, that users can be part of the tenant administrators, and then the tenant administrators can manage all the resources in the tenancy. Or if you want to allow users with more granular permissions to manage OIC, you can define specific integration policies. Let's look at a relevant example for integration users. Now, the policy syntax in Oracle Cloud is like this: allow group and then domain name / group name to, then a verb, then the resource type, and the location in compartment name, or in tenancy. For integration, the relevant verbs are manage and read. So, for example, we can allow a group of integration administrators to manage integration instance, this is the resource type, in a specific compartment. The manage verb allows this group to create, edit, delete integration instances and move them between compartments. For non-administrator users, you may consider giving them read access if that is necessary. And with read access, this is read-only access. This group would be able to see integration instances in a specific compartment and see the details if they click on the instance name. To learn more about the options available for writing policies, and in particular policies for OIC, please refer to the latest documentation. Another policy that is relevant for integration is related to observability. Again, this is an example. And with this particular policy, the statements included here allow specific group, for in this case, the integration administrators, to read metrics in a compartment. This is the compartment where we provisioned OIC before. to manage log groups in the same compartment, and to read log content in the same compartment. For non-administrator users, you may consider something similar with read-only permissions. These statements, they are not mandatory for integration, but they are useful for observability in order to have access to metrics and to logs. These are services available in Oracle Cloud, and OIC is pre-integrated with these services. You can leverage them to monitor your integration instances. And the third policy that is relevant for integration is an announcement policy. The syntax for this policy is slightly different. You will allow the service integration to access the announcements in the tenancy. These statements are not on group level, they are on service level. With this policy, you enable console announcements to be available directly from your OIC service console. A quick word about these console announcements. The announcements are available from the Oracle Cloud Console when you click on the bell icon. The tenant administrator will receive them by email, and other users may be given permissions to view the announcements from the console. The announcements give status updates and about services, different services in Oracle Cloud, including Oracle integration, and notifications for changes or scheduled maintenance for services. This is particularly interesting for Oracle integration because this is the mechanism for notifying administrators and users about upcoming maintenances for OIC. OIC receives new features, releases with new features every 2 months. So with this particular policy, the announcements can be made available from within the Oracle integration console. The user would be able to click on the bell icon and see the announcements. One example is here. So these will be the announcements relevant to the particular integration instance. You will see when the instance is scheduled to receive the release updates, when the maintenance was completed, and any required actions. So we discussed about policies. We looked at 3 relevant policy statements for integration, for user access, for access to observability, and for announcements. Let's look next at the application roles. Once an OIC instance is provisioned, in order to give developers or other users access to that particular instance, to the instance console, you need to define, you need to assign application roles. You do this from your identity domain. Under identity and security, identity domains, and choose the domain that you used for provisioning OIC. Then, under Oracle Cloud Services, you will find an application for your newly provisioned OIC instance. Here, under Resources, Application Roles, you will find the OIC application roles. In order to give users access to a particular instance, you need to go to the application of that particular instance and assign the application roles as relevant from service administrator to service end user. You can assign one or more roles, and the best practice is to assign these roles on group level, not on individual user level. The user that provisions OIC is assigned automatically to the service administrator role. To assign, for example, developers, you can use the service developer role. Click on manage to assign a group and assign a group. In this case, I'm assigning an example group of integration non-administrators. To learn more about these application roles and what users are allowed to do and access the various features of OIC with a particular role, please refer to the latest documentation. You can see what users can do in the various section in OIC console based on their role. Okay, next, let's have a look at our first integration. Let's test our first integration. So we will go to the service console, click on the service console button, or go to the service console URL. From the home page of your OIC instance, you can reach the recipes and accelerators. We're going to use a recipe for a very quick test. Click on search and type echo, and you will find the echo recipe. Click on get to install the recipe. The recipe has been installed successfully and we can use it. We will find the echo recipe installed as an integration. Go to design, go to integrations, and here it is. You can explore this recipe by clicking on the edit button. For now, we are just going to activate it. Click on the activate button and then test it. When you activate, you can select the tracing level between production, audit, and debug. Debug will give you most details, every step of the execution. You may use debug in development or test, but it's not recommended for production. And click on activate. You may click on the refresh button, and now we see that the integration is active. To test it, click on the 3 dots, actions, and click on run. This integration flow is exposed as a REST endpoint. We can test it from the OIC console. We provide a message and click on run. And we got 200 OK and a response. And shortly, we can see also the activity stream with details at every step of the execution of our flow. This integration is exposed as a REST endpoint. You can also test it from any REST client, or you can provide it to an external consumer. To find out the URL and other useful information, you can click on the endpoint metadata button, and this will give you the endpoint URL information, the OpenAPI definition, and the description and an example of how to use the integration as a REST API. Let's test it now from an external client, such as Postman. To test, we need the URL. We can get it from the endpoint metadata. We'll provide a message, hello from Postman. In this particular case, I am using an environment in Postman and variables, but you can just copy the endpoint URL that you get in your endpoint metadata. And click on send. And you will see this first request, we got a 401 unauthorized response. That is because I haven't provided the authorization yet. All the endpoints that you expose from OIC require authentication and authorization. In this case, with a REST endpoint, we can use basic authentication or OAuth. For the simple test, I'm going to use basic authentication, and I provide a username and password. This user needs to be authorized to access or call OIC. And this is done by assigning the proper application role. Let's click on send, and now we get 200 OK response. The minimum role required for a user to be able to call an integration with basic authentication is the service invoker role. You can see in the documentation what users can do in integration design section by role. To run an integration, these are the roles that are allowed to call an integration: the service administrator, the service developer, service user, and service invoker. And as you remember, we previously assigned a group of users to the service developer role, and the one that I used in Postman was part of this group and assigned the service developer role. Let's recap. For user access to OIC, we can use policies and application roles. Now, it is possible to give access to users to OIC only by using the application roles and without policies. As a general concept in Oracle Cloud, a user has 0 permissions by default. And in order to give them permissions, you need to explicitly define policies, or in case of OIC, add the user into relevant application roles. Let's recap the concept we saw in the demo. To provision OIC, from the Oracle Cloud console menu, go to Developer Services, Application Integration, and Integration. Select your provisioning options. Select the region and the compartment where you want to provision OIC. It's a best practice to provision in a child or subcompartment and not directly in the root compartment. Choose your edition between standard and enterprise. Choose the shape between development and production. Development shapes receive the functional updates 2 weeks before production shapes. Choose the license between cloud license, this is selected by default, and BYOL if you have existing licenses for WebLogic and SOA Suite. Choose the sizing of your instance, the number of message packs per hour. The features included in the OIC editions are the following. With Standard Edition, you have access to integrations. You can create and manage integrations, and you can use the more than 80 adapters, SaaS and technology adapters. Visual Builder is also available with the Standard Edition. You can use it to develop web and mobile applications, usually as extensions to integrations. File server is another capability included in standard edition. It's an embedded SFTP server with 500 gigabytes of free storage, which you can leverage in your integration flows with file transfers. Recipes and accelerators are also available with the standard edition. The Enterprise edition includes all the features available in standard edition, and additionally, processes to build automated business process applications, the 4 enterprise adapters for on-premise applications, EBS, JD Edwards, SAP, and Siebel, and the B2B features for implementing document exchange with trading partners. One note about Visual Builder and Process. These capabilities in OIC are, from a technical perspective, the same as the standalone services that you can find in Oracle Cloud as Visual Builder and Process Automation. For user access to OIC, we use policies and roles. In your cloud account, you have domains, identity domains, where you can define your users and your groups. With policies, you define what these groups of users are allowed to access, which resources they are allowed to access in Oracle Cloud in different compartments or tenancy level. With OIC in particular, we use also application roles to control access for the groups of users to the various capabilities of OIC. One example policy for user access with OIC can include a statement for administrators, where you would allow the group of administrators to manage integration instance in a particular compartment. Non-administrator users may also be granted access, read-only access, to see the information about OIC instances in the Cloud Console. And in this case, the statement will look like this: allow group and then the group name to read integration instance in a particular compartment. Note that users can be granted access to an OIC instance without any permissions in the tenancy or at compartment level, so without defining any policies, only by assigning the relevant application roles on OIC instance level. We'll see that in the next slides. A second policy that is relevant for integration is an observability policy. OIC is natively integrated with OCI observability services, monitoring and logging. Integration users can be granted access to these capabilities, to metrics and to logs by defining a policy with statements similar to these. Allow group and then the group name to read metrics or to read log content in a particular compartment where you have provisioned your OIC instance. And the third policy that is relevant for integration is the announcement policy. Console announcements are available in Oracle Cloud. You can view them in the Cloud Console, and these are delivered, can be delivered through email or other notification preferences. The announcements include planned changes, scheduled maintenance, recommended actions, and so on for all the various services in Oracle Cloud, including OIC. The announcements for OIC will give you, for example, the scheduling of the functional updates, which occur every 3 months. Now, while a tenant administrator or a user with the relevant policies can see the announcements in the Cloud Console, it may be beneficial to enable these announcements from within the OIC instance. And to do so, you can define a policy with these two statements: allow service integration to announcement list and to announcement read in the tenancy. And then the relevant announcements for a particular OIC instance will be available directly from within the console of that OIC instance. Next, application roles. After an OIC instance is created, in order to give users access to that particular instance and to the features and capabilities of that particular instance, an administrator needs to assign roles to allow the groups of users to work with OIC. The application roles available are service administrator, monitor, deployer, developer, user, viewer, invoker, and service end user. The best practice is to assign these roles on a group level rather than on individual user level. You can assign one or more of these roles to one or more groups, and you can check the latest documentation to see the details of what each role is allowed to do in the various sections of OIC. Let's discuss next about provisioning OIC with identity domains. Each Oracle Cloud account includes a default identity domain in the root compartment. Older cloud accounts may still have IDCS, but in the near future, all cloud accounts will have this identity domain capability. To provision OIC with the default identity domain, the user that creates the OIC instance must log in using that default domain. In the previous demo, all the actions were done by using the default identity domain. Keep in mind that you can assign the OIC roles only to users in the same identity domain as the OIC instance itself. You can have multiple groups in the same identity domain. With policies, you control what those groups are allowed to do in a particular compartment and with different types of resources in Oracle Cloud. Now, it is also possible to work with multiple identity domains. This is typically a situation when you have strict security and compliance requirements to maintain isolation among users. Your default identity domain is automatically available in the root compartment, but you can create additional domains, identity domains, and control them at different compartment levels. To provision OIC with a specific identity domain, the user that provisions OIC must log in using that specific domain. So you could have an identity domain for development, and then an administrator in that development domain can log in and provision OIC development, and similar for production. Keep in mind, you can assign OIC roles only to users in the same identity domain as the OIC instance. So in this particular example here, if your OIC instance is provisioned using the production identity domain, you can assign OIC roles only to groups defined in the production identity domain. You cannot assign application roles for this instance to groups from a different identity domains, for example, the development identity domain. Again, this is a situation for strict security and compliance requirements. If you are not in such situation, then you can simply use the default identity domain with different groups and different compartments, and then use policies and roles to control access to your OIC instance. To learn more about provisioning OIC and setting user access, please refer to the latest documentation. And these links will be also available in the video description. Thank you for watching.